Well, hello, this is Pastor Brian Anderson, and we are in the book of Mark with another short little message, a little devotion for the day to whet your appetite, your spiritual appetite. And I've taken this from Mark chapter 2, the second half of the chapter. And as I read through that portion of scripture, what struck me was Jesus' self-awareness of his deity, his godhood. In chapter 2, verse 14, Jesus walks by Levi's tax booth and he commands him, "Follow me." He doesn't ask him to consider following him. He doesn't say, "Hey, I just want to exhort you to pray about whether you ought to follow me." He just simply commands Levi to follow him, and Levi does. He leaves his job, he leaves his tax receipts, he leaves the tax booth, and he just goes and follows this itinerant preacher slash healer. In chapter 2, verses 19 and 20, Jesus refers to himself as the bridegroom. Well, in the Old Testament, the bridegroom was always a reference to Jehovah God. For example, Isaiah 61:10, "I will rejoice greatly in the Lord. My soul will exult in my God, for he has clothed me with garments of salvation. He has wrapped me with a robe of righteousness. As a bridegroom decks himself with a garland, and as a bride adorns herself with her jewels." Or again, Isaiah 62:5, "For as a young man marries a virgin, so your sons will marry you. And as the bridegroom rejoices over the bride, so your God will rejoice over you." And then Jesus comes along in the New Testament and he says, "I am the bridegroom of the church." In chapter 2, verse 28, Jesus claims that he is the Lord of the Sabbath, probably because he was the one who instituted the Sabbath originally, being God, and he's the one who can give the true meaning and application of the Sabbath. So what should we make of all of this? I mean, what do we do with Jesus's claims to deity? We only really have a few options. A guy who goes around commanding people to leave their jobs and follow him as an itinerant preacher, a guy who calls himself the bridegroom of the church, a guy who tells everyone that he's the Lord of the Sabbath. Someone who does that, we only have a few options. Either he was right or he was wrong. If he was wrong, he could have been unintentionally wrong, or he could have been intentionally wrong. If he was unintentionally wrong, we would say that man was crazy. He was insane. He was on a par with the guy who claims to be Elvis Presley risen from the dead, right? That kind of a guy. He's just mentally unstable. Now, if he was intentionally wrong, we would say that he was a wicked man because he's a chronic liar. He's going around telling people all these lies that he knows are not true, but he's just spreading falsehoods about himself, trying to build up a following of people who will come after him. The only other option is that Jesus was not wrong, he was right. And if he was right, then he is Lord and God. He is the bridegroom of the church. He is the Lord of the Sabbath, and he does have the right to command any person at any time to do anything because he is their creator. So let me just ask you, what do you believe about Jesus's claims here? I don't know about you, but I don't believe he was crazy, and I don't think he was a chronic liar. I believe he is Lord and God. He is who he claimed to be. He backed up that claim by predicting that he would rise from the dead, and then in 3 days after his crucifixion, he did rise from the dead and leave that tomb. The tomb is empty. So that makes all the difference in the world to me. I hope this little message encourages you to worship Jesus Christ and to submit your life completely to him, because he is Lord and he is God and he is worthy of your worship and your obedience. So I hope this encourages you. Until next time, next video, this is Pastor Brian Anderson. I'll see you then.